Elvis is injured. Ken Johnson is injured. The hits just keep on coming. And if that's not bad enough, they have to play Vegas tonight. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, because right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. And I don't know that I would put money on the matchup tonight because it feels like it's just kind of gonna be rough. We've got some injury news to talk about. We're gonna do that. We'll do that in a sec. But I wanted to talk about tonight's matchup because I didn't realize that the Blue Jackets hadn't played Vegas yet. Both of their games in the season series are coming within a 3-week span, which is, I mean, get it. On the one hand, it's over and done with quickly, but on the other hand, you've kind of been waiting the whole season. Reigning Stanley Cup champions. I don't know that I think the Blue Jackets have beaten them once in their entire history, once, maybe twice. So tall order. I think the Knights are looking weirdly mortal this season. Mark Stone is out on long-term IR. I believe Jack Eichel is also on long-term IR. I could be wrong about that, so don't quote me on it. He's definitely injured. I just don't know how injured. They've still got Jonathan Marchessault, who has 32 goals in 61 games, 53 points, is leading the team right now, or leading the team among healthy players. Obviously, we're going to expect a William Karlsson revenge game because he sure does love to do that. But like I said, they're looking weirdly mortal. They're in a playoff spot. They're third in the division right now, behind only Edmonton and Vancouver. Los Angeles right up behind them. The Knights have 73 points. The Kings have 72 points. But they're 20th in the league in the power play. They're 12th on the penalty kill. Their special teams are not as dangerous as I feel like they were this time last year. Obviously, I live in a glass house made of glass stones because the Blue Jackets still have the 29th and 25th best power play and penalty kill in the league. But when I was looking at these stats, I expected more from the Vegas Golden Knights, if I'm being brutally honest. In terms of players to watch, Shea Theodore has 8 assists in his last 5 games. Jonathan Marchessault has 9 points in his last 5 games. Like I said, Marchessault, always dangerous. They've got a lot of, even with Mark Stone and Jack Eichel out, I feel like this team is still a problem. Pietrangelo has 29 points in 56 games. Like I said, Shea Theodore has got 8 of his 27 points have come in the last 5 games. That's insane. That's fully wild. I love that. But it's going to be a tall order for the Blue Jackets. I don't think they won against this. I don't think the Blue Jackets beat the Golden Knights last season. I'm trying to think of the last win that they had against this team, and it might honestly be the game against the Elvis's first win. That's almost certainly not it, but that's the only one I can think of right now. So the Blue Jackets are going to have to dig deep for this. It will shock you to know that this is not one of the games that I have earmarked for a potential victory in the Blue Jackets' remaining schedule, which they have 22 games left, and I think 5 of them, maybe 7 of them, are winnable. So maybe they surprise us. Maybe this is one of those ones, like the New York game the other day, when I was like, man, I'm not expecting them to win this. So if they do, it's kind of a bonus. Maybe this will be the other bonus win that Blue Jackets fans get. Can they win back-to-back games this season? I said I wasn't going to say the B2B words, but I did say back-to-back. It has to happen, right? They can't go from November till the end of the season without winning 2 games in a row. Like, that feels mathematically impossible. And it's probably more doable later in the week because they play, I believe, the Canadians and then the Senators, or possibly the Senators, then the Canadians. So, like, 2 beatable teams. But I think it would be fun if they beat the defending champions. I think that would be neat. I would enjoy that. The Blue Jackets are, we kind of talked about this in yesterday's episode. They kind of, where they are right now, I feel like is probably around where they're going to finish the season. They're 3 points ahead of Anaheim, 3 points behind Ottawa. So they could finish third, they could finish fifth. I don't see them finishing higher than fifth in the draft lottery. I also don't see them finishing lower than third. Like, it's going to be real tough to out-tank the Sharks and the Blackhawks unless something goes horribly wrong for the Blue Jackets. Like, for example, one of your best young players getting injured. Although I don't, as much as I hate to admit it, I don't know how much that's going to affect the team, considering he barely played anyway. That's a whole other problem, though. That is not his fault. And I'm still mad about it, but it is what it is. Point being, the Blue Jackets could win this game, and I don't think it will really affect their draft position. They have played one more game than the Senators, so the Senators have a game in hand and are 3 points ahead. So even if they win this game, they'll still be a point behind the Senators, then with 2 games in hand, because I don't believe the Senators play tomorrow night, or tonight even. I'm recording this on Monday night, so I don't know. I don't know how to think about this game, because again, it's one of those ones where, like, my head says one thing and my gut says another. And frankly, listening to my gut has not done me a ton of favors this season, because it's my gut that keeps telling me, hey, this team is close. Hey, this team is looking good. And I do think they are looking good. I think it's been a run of solid games for the team that unfortunately haven't ended the way that they necessarily wanted them to. I think since they came back from the California road trip, finishing with the Ducks, I think every game since then has been extremely solid. The Sabres, I think, was a 2-1 loss. It happens. I think everyone played well enough in that game. Then they played the Rangers and won. Then they played the Rangers and lost, despite the fact that everyone played well. It was a 4-1 loss, I think, but again, 2 empty netters, so basically a 2-1 loss. Same thing with the Hurricanes. They played well and just lost because Spencer Martin revenge game happened, and then they played well against the Blackhawks and beat them. And I don't think it should be over. Like, I don't think beating the Blackhawks is something that you can be like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's only the Blackhawks. Well, a win is a win, and frankly, we haven't enjoyed many of them this season, so I'm gonna damn well enjoy that one. But we get to the point of is Vegas beatable? And I think yes. And I'm gonna tell you why in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Just go in, find the heaviest possible favorite. If you can bet on, like, a Harlem Globetrotters game, do that on FanDuel, because if you bet $5 and win, you're going to get 150 of them in bonus bets, and you can use those for quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more, from NBA to NHL to college sports to, like, tennis, NASCAR, golf, like, whatever sport you want, FanDuel has it. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA, and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are talking about how beatable the Vegas Golden Knights are. And the answer is, like, honestly, not very, but they feel like less of a juggernaut than they were last season. They finished last season with 111 points, 51 wins, 22 losses, 9 overtime losses. They won the division, just beating out the Oilers. Currently, they are 11th in the league. Like I said, third in their division. They've got 73 points, 33 wins, 21 losses, and 7 assists. So, like, they could hit the numbers of last season, but they would have to win, I think, every single game from now till the end of the season, which seems impossible. So, like, they're definitely less mortal than they were, but just because they're missing a couple of key players does not make them like pushovers. And I think that's a really great way to lose a game, is to underestimate an opponent. So how did the Blue Jackets win this game? I think by just continuing to build on the things that they've done over the past couple of weeks. I think the penalty kill has been pretty good. I think the power play has not been great, but it has existed at all. I think leaning on goaltending, which we'll talk about goaltending in a minute, I expect we'll probably see Daniil Tarasov tonight because Elvis Merzlikins is injured again. He's day-to-day with an upper body injury. Jack Greaves is here on emergency recall. He deserves it, quite frankly. Kid has been real good for the Cleveland Monsters, and he might play, he might not. I don't think he'll play tonight, but he deserves to get a little bit of NHL time, I think. Hopefully Merzlikins is back soon, because he has been the better goalie in recent play, but I think Tarasov has been fine to good. I think somewhere in that fine and or good range. The goaltending for the Golden Knights has been, again, fine to good. Aiden Hill has been good. He's 15, 6, and 2 with a 923 save percentage. Logan Thompson is 17, 12, and 5 with a 903 save percentage. I imagine they'll probably see Aiden Hill, who seems to have like mysteriously turned into a legitimate NHL starter option, which is wild because I remember when the Sharks basically gave him up for nothing. So I imagine it'll be Tarasov versus Hill tonight, which is wild. That's a real kind of discrepancy, because I think on one hand you've got Aiden Hill, who has a Stanley Cup, and on the other hand you have Daniil Tarasov, who you never really know what you're going to get with any passing game. So I think in terms of like the edge, I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of goaltending. I'm probably going to give them the edge in scoring. I'm definitely going to give them the edge in defense. So on paper, everything about this team is better than the Blue Jackets. They score 3.18 goals per game, which is good for 14th in the league. The Blue Jackets score 2.93, which is good for 24th. They allow only 2.9 goals per game, which is good for 10th in the league. The Blue Jackets allow 3.65, which is 31st in the league. So, like, again, on paper, there's no way the Blue Jackets are walking into Nationwide and coming out with a win. But I feel like I said that about the Rangers game that they won. I feel like I was like, yeah, it'll be fun. It's fun to think about, but there's no way they win this game, really. So that's kind of how I feel about this game, which is maybe unfair of me, and maybe I should give the team a little bit more faith. But I also have given this team a lot of faith, and they have not generally rewarded me. So let's talk predictions, because. Oh boy, like my head is like, man, it's gonna be like 6-2 Vegas, and everyone's gonna be sad about it. But I think I'm gonna go with a 4-2 Blue Jackets win, just because I have bet on the Blue Jackets, I think, every single prediction this season, and I have been wrong so many times. I've been wrong 40 times, in fact, because the Blue Jackets have played 60 games and lost 40 of them. But I don't feel good about this prediction, but I am committed to the bit now, I think. And I'm gonna go ahead and predict as a goal scorer. I'm gonna say Jack Roslovic. I feel like Jack Roslovic is due a goal. He's got 5 points in his last 5 games, 4 assists. Cole Sillinger is another option. He's the hot hand right now. He's got 3 goals in his last 5 games. 3 goals in his last 3 games, actually. He's on a 3-game goal scoring streak, which is really fun. I enjoy that. But I think I'm going to say Jack Roslovic. Why not? I'm sure that'll make one of my everydayers, Morgan, real happy, because she loves him, and she wants me to talk about Jack Roslovic more. So if he has a good game, maybe we'll talk about him more. Who can say? Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the tragedy of Kent Johnson. That's coming up next here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Game Time, because you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, and you don't have to with Game Time. They're the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theatre events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. GameWork takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They are obsessed with finding ways to help you save money. With zone deals, you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you get big time savings. The Game Time guarantee means that you're always going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the only ticketing service that I use these days. I hadn't heard of it before they started sponsoring us, and I checked them out and was like, oh, these are actually really great. I love these. I love Game Time way more than the other unnamed ticketing service that I was using before. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets, and we have to talk about Kent Johnson, who finished the game against the Rangers and then didn't play the game against the Hurricanes or the game against Chicago, and announced today he has torn his labrum. He is going to be out for the rest of the season. That's about a 6-month recovery time. So he's out. Oh, I mean, he's out for the rest of the season, obviously. But when you look at the more recent torn labrums that this team has suffered, Zach Werenski and Jake Bean both tore their labrum within like a week of each other. But they did it right at the start of the season. So they had 6 months to fully rehab it and then summer to get back in shape. Johnson is going to be rehabbing this throughout the summer. He's going to be coming into training camp not having had a full summer workout. And that's going to be really tough, especially for a guy like Johnson, who, the emphasis on his game is he needs to get bigger. He needs to get stronger. Well, he's not going to be able to spend the summer getting bigger and stronger because he's going to spend the summer making sure that his shoulder still works. And then it's just a really tough injury. Like, this sucks. I was sad when I saw that he was injured, but I wasn't sure if it was like how serious it was. Turns out it's pretty darn serious. Done for the season. And that just kind of feels like, yeah, that makes sense for the season he's having, which is really unfair because, like, I like Kent Johnson's game so much. And again, he has struggled in many ways this season. He only has 16 points in 42 games, 6 goals, 10 assists, spent a bunch of time killing it in the AHL, came back up, has looked really good and just hasn't been putting the puck in the net. Partially, I think, due to some bad luck and partially due to the fact that he hasn't had real line mates basically all season. And then he finally gets put on this line that I like a lot with Nylander and Sillinger, plays, 2 games, 1.5 games, gets hurt, and now he's done for the season. And I feel for the guy because we talked a lot last season about Cole Sillinger's kind of sophomore slump and how it was almost entirely confidence-based because once you and I think we're kind of seeing that now because look at what kind of player Cole Sillinger has been for the Blue Jackets this season. Kent Johnson, I feel like, hasn't really taken a knock to his confidence. I think this kid has confidence out the butt. And I think it's probably been a tough season for him, but I don't think it's affected him the same way as it's affected Cole Sillinger because he's still, even though he's not putting the points up, he's still doing all of the Kent Johnson things that the Blue Jackets drafted him for. He is crazy skilled. He can pass through the eye of a needle. Like, he's been doing a lot of really good things, kind of like Johnny Gaudreau at the start of the season, who, there was a large chunk for the start of the season where Johnny Gaudreau was in the top 10 in the league in creating offense. And because no one was putting his passes in the net, it looked like he wasn't doing anything, And Ken Johnson's kind of in the same boat of his underlying stats look pretty good. But he's not getting the ice time. He's not getting the bounces. He's not having the line mates. And now he's done for the season. So, like, what a way to cap off just a really disappointing sophomore season for him. I know a lot of people, myself included, were expecting really great things from Ken Johnson this season. And I wish this season had turned out better for him. And I do want to clarify that again. I think this is a coaching mishandle, a development mishandle. Kent Johnson is going to be fighting an uphill battle now. He's got to sign a new contract, which my guess is he's probably going to sign a short bridge deal, maybe a show me contract, and then he's going to have to fight for his spot in training camp. after just coming off of his rehab for his shoulder surgery. So it's March 4th as I'm recording this. He's having his surgery tomorrow, so the day that you're listening to this, I believe, Tuesday, March 5th. 6 months from then will take him all the way through to September 5th, I believe, if I'm doing my math right. And then that's when training camp starts. Like that's it. He doesn't have like he can do some leg work. He's probably, it's not like he's going to be doing nothing for 6 months. He's going to be skating, he's going to be training, but he won't be able to put in a full summer of pushing himself every single day in the gym, trying to get bigger, trying to get stronger, trying to put some weight on, because he's not a guy that naturally puts weight on, and that's been a big thing that the Blue Jackets have pushed this season is he needs to gain weight, he needs to get bigger, and he's just not going to get bigger, I don't think. Like, he's only 19, 20, he's probably not done filling out yet, so, like, there's still a little bit of time, but he's gonna be fighting such an uphill battle coming into training camp, and after such a disappointing sophomore season, and watching the way that Cole Sillinger has kind of bounced back this season, I think you've got a feel for the guy. You really do. The other injury news, obviously, we talked about this a little bit earlier on. Elvis, after playing excellently in 3 straight games, the win against Chicago, and then the 2 games against New York, one of which was a loss, but he allowed like 2 goals on like 38 shots or something, and then winning against the Rangers in the game before that, is out day to day with an upper body injury. Because speaking of guys who just can't catch breaks, I don't know. Apparently, it's just like soreness and like bumps and bruises and stuff, which makes sense. I'm surprised that more goalies aren't just like walking bruises sometimes. But it's disappointing and it's disheartening. That being said, I think this is a good chance for Jet Greaves to come up to see some NHL practice time, if not some NHL game time. I imagine Tarasov will probably start all of the games while he's here. I'm just going to pull up what the when the next games are. So tonight, March 4th. Tomorrow, March 5th. Oh, he might. Okay. So the Blue Jackets play Vegas tonight, and then Pittsburgh tomorrow night. So maybe Jet Greaves will play one of these games. Do I know which one? If I had to guess, probably Pittsburgh. I would imagine that Tarasov gets the start against Vegas. Give Jet Greaves the start against Pittsburgh. He's new here. He doesn't have that kind of. I feel like Pittsburgh always gives Elvis fits in the same way that it kind of used to give Bobrovsky fits. But a good time for him to get some game action, I guess, if the Blue Jackets have a back-to-back. I don't think it's a good idea to start Tarasov both games in a row, but we'll see what happens, because I have no longer any faith in, like, knowing what this coaching staff is going to do. So it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if they were like, you know what? We're going to start Jet Greaves for both games. You can set on the bench Tarasov. That probably won't happen, but I also just super wouldn't be surprised if it did. And I think that's kind of all I've got for today. Later on, we've got another prospect profile coming. I sat down with Will Scouch of Scouching to talk about Zane Parekh, who is a really interesting prospect to look at. Maybe not one that the Blue Jackets will draft, but I think definitely interesting to look at and kind of contextualize the other defensemen in this draft that the Blue Jackets might be more interested in. So that's coming up later today. It's another double episode day. And then tomorrow we'll break down tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll look at tomorrow's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And we'll go from there. Let's have some fun with it. Let's have some fun this March. The Blue Jackets aren't making the playoffs. Let's try and ruin the playoffs for everybody else. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, please email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to be entered into a draw to win 2 tickets to the April 1st game against the Colorado Avalanche at Nationwide, email proof of you being subscribed to my YouTube channel to lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com, and you'll be entered into that prize draw. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and on SiriusXM. Thank you once again for listening. Don't forget to enter the giveaway. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.